Welcome back. Let's talk about continuation bias. Now, a lot of these cognitive biases that I talk about and logical fallacies, it's interesting, especially the cognitive biases, because cognitive biases are skills or dispositions to improve your ability to make good decisions, to make wise decisions, to be a better problem solver, to discover truth and solutions whenever other people seem to miss it. And this is not always a black and white endeavor. In other words, whenever I talk about a bias, it's easy to kind of justify one of the biases by saying, well, there's a part of it that's good, isn't it? And the answer is yes. So that's true for the one that I'm going to talk about today, which is continuation bias. So continuation bias is what happens when we stick with a plan that is clearly falling apart simply because it's set in motion. We lament the fact that we've put all of this time and energy and effort into it, and it makes it hard for us to let go. So we just continue in a failed endeavor. And I've seen that happen. It can even happen if you're lost and you're hiking in a certain direction and you've been hiking for hours and hours and you figure, well, I might as well just keep going this direction because, I've put so much time into it. It's bound to lead somewhere. Or we can find this in our decisions in our workplace or when we're trying to solve a problem or we're in the middle of a literal and metaphorical treasure hunt. And the reality is that sometimes we quit a little bit too early. And that's the opposite side of continuation bias. So sometimes people get caught up in continuation bias because they're just so afraid that if I quit now, maybe the solution was just around the corner. And I'm not talking about that. That's true. Persistence is necessary to solve big problems and discover those literal and metaphorical treasures sometimes. And you have to go a little bit farther, look a little bit more. But what I'm talking about is when the evidence is increasingly clear, abundantly clear to any logical person outside of you that this is the wrong place. And yet somehow you convince yourself to keep going. We've all dealt with it. It's a real thing. And so let's talk about some ways that you can teach yourself to maybe prevent continuation bias from hijacking your efforts and leading you down the wrong trail for far too long. First one is to schedule some pause points. This is where you build moments to actually pause and reassess, checkpoints to ask, is this really the right path? What's the evidence that it is the right path, evidence it isn't? Now, you can always play mind games with yourself and try to convince yourself one way or another. You're trying to teach yourself to engage some really clear, logical, and honest thinking when you do this, but it is still good to pause and say, okay, is the evidence still there? Does it seem to suggest that I'm going the right direction? Or does it look like maybe I've gone too far? I need to backtrack and check another route. The second one is to separate emotion from evidence. Momentum feels really powerful. When you're going in a certain direction and you're going that way, it can feel right just because you've put time and energy in it, and it can convince yourself to keep going. So you have to teach yourself, we have to teach ourselves to separate real evidence from just the emotional attachment that we have to a particular decision or a direction. And that one, easier said than done, I realize, but it's an important thing to practice if we want to get better at this. The third one is to invite some honest feedback from someone who's outside of the situation. And sometimes people outside of the situation don't have the context, don't have the insight, don't have the wisdom. They haven't done the research that you've done. And so we can find ways to really diminish or downplay or even disagree with and dispute the ideas that are coming from beyond us. But there's still some value in finding someone who's reasonably informed and can look at the situation with less bias, with less attachment to the direction you're going, and give you some feedback. Doesn't mean you always have to accept that feedback, but it's a good check. It's a good pushback to your own propensity to just follow the momentum and keep going. The next one then is to get used to changing course, normalize changing course. When you're trying different things, pay attention whenever it's not working, and when it really seems like it's a failed attempt and you're going to try something, document that. Actually, jot it down, make it normal, get used to kind of changing course so that you can feel what it's like to change course and realize that it's not the end of the world, it's not the end of the day, that you can actually get momentum going in a second or a third or a fourth direction, and it can actually feel kind of good, and your emotions can support your logic and your reason as you move forward with this. And then the last one is to practice sort of little exits. In low stakes situations, just practice walking away when something isn't working. You can, build the muscle of pivoting. And so these last two are obviously really closely related, but number four was really about normalizing it, and the fifth one is really about practicing it, and they go together. You normalize something by practicing it, but you put these five together, and you're going to get a little bit better at resisting the temptation to fall into the continuation bias trap. We always will, as it's true, and I've said with other confirmation or other cognitive bias videos, yes, we will sometimes fall into these, and yet the key with each one is to become cognizant of it and to start practicing the skills that help us be a little bit more logical, a little bit more aware, and make wiser decisions as we're going through those literal and metaphorical treasure hunts in our life. I hope you find this useful. I look forward to your comments.